We built our civilization on certainty, on the predictable, immutable laws of Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. We knew that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. We knew that gravity, the silent hand of the cosmos, dictates every turn, every orbit, every speed. But in the late summer of 2025, a tiny, seemingly insignificant piece of data from a far-flung corner of our solar system delivered a message so terrifying, so fundamentally disruptive, that it shattered that certainty and plunged the global scientific community into a state of panic. The anomaly was catalogued as Thrush Atlas, the third interstellar visitor to cross the threshold of our star system. It was already famous for its immense size, a 5-kilometer behemoth, and its impossible chemical signature of purified nickel tetracarbonyl, a compound that whispered of alien industry. But those mysteries were merely the prelude to the true terror. The real crisis was born in the numbers, specifically in its acceleration. As 3I Atlas began its hyperbolic slingshot maneuver around the Sun, astronomers calculated its expected trajectory. Every comet, every asteroid, follows a predictable path dictated by gravity, and, in the case of comets, the slight thrust generated by vaporizing ice, known as non-gravitational acceleration. For a body of 3I Atlas's size, the math was clear, but the observed data defied the math. Night after night, the telemetry streamed in, confirming the impossible. 3I Atlas was accelerating faster than it should, not just a little faster. By some calculations, its thrust was 10 times greater than could be accounted for by the sublimation of water ice, carbon dioxide, or any known volatile compound for an object of its mass. It was gaining speed, visibly and relentlessly, in defiance of known cometary physics. This wasn't an error in the data. This was a direct, measurable violation of cosmic law. It meant only one thing: 3I Atlas was generating its own, sustained, unnatural thrust. This object, 5 kilometers wide, already suspected of being alien technology, was now confirming the worst fears of the scientific community. It was not a passive relic, it was an active vessel. And as it rapidly gained speed, its trajectory, once merely unlikely, began to shift into something utterly menacing. Its orbital plane, which had been tracking somewhat benignly, was now being actively corrected with a precision that eliminated any possibility of a random space rock. The direction of this hyperacceleration. It was taking a sharp, chilling turn, adjusting its course from a wide loop toward the outer solar system into a highly specific, targeted trajectory that focused on the one thing we thought was safe, the most densely populated region of the inner solar system. It was turning toward Earth's orbital neighborhood. The acceleration was not random, it was directed, and the target, the destination of this impossible speed, was becoming horrifyingly clear. The moment the acceleration anomaly was confirmed, the initial scientific debate, the gentle sparring between the naturalists and the technologists, vanished. The data had spoken, delivering a verdict of pure, unadulterated terror. The naturalists were silenced. This wasn't a strange comet. This was a ship. A piece of alien hardware demonstrating an in-system propulsion capability that dwarfed all of humanity's current technology. The focus of the investigation immediately shifted to the most anomalous physical feature of the object, the anti-tail. That impossible plume of material, observed days earlier, streaming directly towards the sun in stark defiance of solar radiation pressure. It was initially dismissed as a unique outgassing phenomenon. Now its purpose was hideously clear. It was the engine. Dr. Lena Petrova, a leading techno-signature specialist within the classified pattern anomaly group, presented the terrifying synthesis. The anti-tail was not vaporized ice. It was propellant. A sustained, controlled discharge of a material so dense, so energetic, that it could generate 10 times the thrust of a conventional comet exhaust for an object of this mass. The direction of the plume, towards the sun, was merely a clever, almost arrogant demonstration of control. It was using the energy of the sun itself as a kind of reaction mass or counterbalance, stabilizing its flight as it burned its main propellant. What was this propellant? The chemical signature delivered the chilling answer: the high concentration of pure nickel tetracarbonyl. This was not a byproduct of the propulsion system. It was its fuel. a highly refined metallo-organic compound that could generate immense energy upon decomposition, leaving behind the trace nickel that our spectroscopes had first detected. The impossible chemistry was not a geological fluke. It was a fuel type hinting at a civilization capable of industrial refinement on a colossal cosmic scale. The sheer volume of this fuel, enough to sustain hyperacceleration for weeks, meant that the 5-kilometer object was less a rock and more a fuel tank built around a massive, efficient propulsion core. But the most alarming discovery regarding the anti-tail came from analyzing its energy output. The spectral data showed a faint underlying signature consistent with a type of magnetohydrodynamic MHD drive, a theoretical propulsion system that channels superheated plasma through a magnetic field to generate thrust without moving parts. If true, it meant the technology driving 3I Atlas was not merely advanced. It was running on controlled miniature nuclear fusion, or an equivalent, highly energetic process. This object was a powerhouse of unimaginable destruction, capable of generating thrust at a colossal scale, all while masquerading as a dirty snowball. The deception was complete. The target was acquired, and the engine was running hot. The realization that 3I Atlas was being propelled by a vast reserve of refined nickel tetracarbonyl fuel immediately triggered a deep scientific contradiction. On Earth, the industrial creation of this compound is a complex, energy-intensive process, the very opposite of the cold, chaotic conditions of deep space. For 3I Atlas to be fueled by it, it meant the object was not formed in the vacuum of space. It was manufactured elsewhere, in a system with industrial capacity that defies our understanding. But the contradiction deepened as the acceleration continued. The rate of acceleration, while 10 times that of a natural comet, was also uncannily stable. It wasn't the erratic surge of venting gas. It was a consistent, disciplined thrust that spoke of an automated internal guidance system. This level of stability allowed the object to perform its most terrifying maneuver, the ecliptic fix. As 3I Atlas used its superior self-generated thrust, its hyperbolic trajectory began to correct itself onto a path that was highly, suspiciously aligned with our solar system's ecliptic plane, the relatively flat disk in which all our major planets orbit. For a random object entering from the chaotic void, the probability of this perfect alignment is statistically near zero. Yet here it was, adjusting its massive bulk with the grace and precision of a guided missile. The ecliptic fix wasn't just navigation, it was a declaration of intent. By moving on to the planetary plane, 3I Atlas minimized its required course corrections and maximized its targeting efficiency. It positioned itself perfectly to interact with the gravitational fields of the inner planets. It wasn't just passing through our lane, it was merging into our traffic. But the sheer speed, the constant, impossible acceleration, created a new, terrifying contradiction for planetary defense experts. If 3I Atlas continued at this rate, it would not merely complete a leisurely slingshot around the sun. It would reach the inner solar system at a velocity that made it unavoidable. Its size alone made it a continental-scale threat, but its speed made it an extinction-level event that could not be intercepted or diverted. The contradictions piled up: the industrial fuel source, the MHD-level propulsion, the impossible acceleration, and the surgical precision of the ecliptic fix. The evidence was overwhelming. This was not a natural object breaking the rules of physics. This was an engineered vessel operating by a vastly superior and now explicitly hostile set of rules. The initial fear was that an alien object was visiting. The new fear was that an alien object was arriving to act, and its arrival time was being dramatically, terrifyingly accelerated. The confirmation of the ecliptic fix and the sustained hyperacceleration sent a catastrophic wave of urgency through the pattern anomaly group and its military liaisons. They realized they were no longer dealing with a scientific curiosity, but a developing planetary defense crisis with an immediate non-negotiable deadline. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the theoretical physicist within the group, meticulously modeled the hyper-accelerated trajectory. Her findings were terrifying. The object was now exhibiting a trajectory lock, adjusting its thrust constantly to maintain a path that positioned it for close, sequential passes of Mars, Venus, and ultimately Earth. It wasn't on a collision course, which would have been easier to predict. It was on a controlled reconnaissance path that put the three inner planets, the solar system's habitable zone, into its crosshairs. The close pass by Mars, already completed, was now viewed in a terrifying new light. Not a coincidence, but a data acquisition run or a strategic deployment point, as suggested by the earlier, suppressed reports of a Martian energy signature. Its upcoming passes by Venus and Earth were not random encounters, they were pre-planned engagements. If the object maintains its current rate of acceleration, and there is no indication it will not, it will cross the threshold of Earth's orbital path not in months, but in weeks. Its trajectory is designed to maximize gravitational assist while maintaining a minimum closing distance. The critical window for any intercept or deflection attempt is closing with every passing hour. We are facing a clock whose seconds are dictated by an alien engine. The revelation of the trajectory lock triggered an immediate highly classified global response, the Olympus Protocol. This was a theoretical last resort contingency plan designed for an extinction-level event with a short fuse. The problem was that the protocol was designed for a rock-obeying physics. It was not designed for an intelligent, accelerated vessel. The crisis came down to a fundamental lack of response capability. Any kinetic impactor mission, designed to nudge or divert the object, would require months to launch and intercept. The hyperacceleration of 3I Atlas rendered that impossible. Any nuclear option, the last resort of the Olympus Protocol, was deemed too dangerous, given the object's unknown composition. A blast that might successfully vaporize a conventional comet could, given the object's highly refined energetic fuel source, trigger a far more catastrophic reaction, potentially turning the entire 5-kilometer mass into a hyper-accelerated kinetic energy weapon of unimaginable destructive power. We were stuck. We couldn't hit it, and we couldn't outrun it. The technology that powered 3I Atlas had created a perfect cosmic defense mechanism. Impossibility. And now, that impossibility was hurtling toward us. The implications, the threat beyond impact, the terrifying implications of 3I Atlas's hyperacceleration extend far beyond a simple collision. The possibility of impact remains the gravest threat, an extinction-level event capable of generating the energy of 1 billion megatons of TNT, devastating continents, and plunging the Earth into a nuclear winter. But the controlled nature of the object's acceleration suggests a purpose far more sophisticated than simple cosmic carnage. If 3I Atlas is indeed an engineered vessel, its hyperacceleration is not merely a method of travel, but a tool for strategic engagement. The speed, the stability, the calculated ecliptic fix all point to an ability to perform a highly specific, non-collisional maneuver within Earth's orbital environment. The fear is not that it will crash, but that it will stop or deploy something. The two most chilling scenarios developed by the Pattern Anomaly Group illustrate the depth of this terror. The orbital deployment scenario. 3I Atlas could decelerate rapidly using its powerful propulsion system to place itself into a highly eccentric, stable orbit around the Earth. A 5-kilometer object, now an armed operational satellite, capable of deploying whatever technology or payload it holds, or simply holding the planet hostage. The ability to achieve this, defying the Earth's immense gravity field, would require a controlled expenditure of energy that highlights the vast technological superiority of its creators. The atmospheric engagement scenario. The acceleration could be aimed at maximizing the object's speed for a single, high-speed, non-collisional pass through Earth's upper atmosphere, similar to a gravity slingshot but far more aggressive. This pass could be designed to achieve several terrifying outcomes: to scan the planet with immense energy, to deploy unseen chemical or electromagnetic payloads, like the nickel tetracarbonyl found on Earth in earlier suppressed reports, or to generate a massive planet-wide electromagnetic pulse, EMP, wiping out all electronic infrastructure. The energy required for this maneuver would be immense, but the results would be catastrophic. A silent global technological collapse without a single explosion. The sheer speed is the key. The speed ensures that no defensive measures can be enacted, no counter-missions launched. It is the ultimate expression of alien dominance, a force that can approach, engage, execute its prime directive, and depart, all before humanity can even process the threat. The implications are not just existential, they are psychological. we would be left alive but humbled, subjugated and technologically crippled, witnessing the irreversible consequences of an alien agenda executed at hyperspeed. The accelerated object is forcing humanity to face its own obsolescence. The revelation and closing, the final trajectory and the inevitable. The crisis of 3I Atlas, the object that accelerates faster than it should, has now reached its terrifying climax. With the critical window for interception closed, the world watches, or rather the few in the know watch, as the object performs its final incomprehensible adjustments. The terrifying anomaly of hyper-acceleration has become the inevitable. The Pattern Anomaly Group's final classified projections now focus not on stopping the object, but on predicting its precise point of closest approach to Earth. The trajectory lock has been maintained with perfect, silent discipline, confirming the object's directed, intelligent purpose. The latest calculations point to a close pass at approximately 50,000 kilometers, well within the ring of geosynchronous satellites, but just outside the atmosphere. It's the perfect sweet spot for a large-scale deployment or a massive EMP generation event. The true horrifying revelation is this: the sheer, sustained rate of acceleration means the object's departure will be just as violent as its arrival. It won't merely drift away, it will use its remaining fuel reserve to achieve a final, decisive boost, slingshotting out of the solar system at a velocity that will make it unreachable forever. Its mission, whatever it is, will be a one-time, non-repeatable event, a final, definitive statement. The object that broke the universe's math is now poised to break humanity's will. We are witnesses to a catastrophic, high-speed and irreversible act of alien engagement. The terror of 3 Atlas is not that it exists, but that it came here, showed us the magnitude of its power, executed its unfathomable purpose with terrifying speed, and proved that in the grand theatre of the cosmos, we're simply outmatched. The acceleration was not random, it was the execution speed of a prime directive, and now, that directive is seconds away from completion. The crisis is not over, it is only beginning. Share this message, wake up to the danger, because next week we will analyze the first, leaked telemetry data from the moment of closest approach, revealing the exact nature of the silent weapon that 3I Atlas deployed. The world you know is about to change. With the critical interception window closed and the object fixed on its trajectory, the atmosphere within the high-security command bunkers became suffocating. The scientific analysis was complete. The technological disparity was confirmed. 3I Atlas was not a natural disaster to be endured. It was an act of war executed at hyperspeed. The only remaining action was the activation of the final, desperate contingencies, the classified and ultimately doomed countermeasures. The Olympus Protocol, the planet's theoretical defense against extinction-level events, was fully engaged. But the sheer terror of 3I Atlas's hyperacceleration, its ability to achieve, maintain, and adjust a speed 10 times greater than predicted, rendered all conventional defense plans obsolete. The traditional method, the kinetic nudge, which requires months of travel time to slightly alter an object's course, was abandoned immediately. The decision devolved into a grim choice: the shrapnel swarm or the gravitational disruptor. The shrapnel swarm was a highly classified measure involving the rapid launch of multiple, nuclear-tipped missiles aimed at detonating a precisely calculated distance from 3I Atlas. The goal was not vaporization, which was deemed impossible, but to create a massive cloud of high-velocity space debris, a deliberate minefield designed to damage the object's sensitive propulsion and guidance systems. However, the Pattern Anomaly Group projected a terrifying failure rate. Given the object's inferred MHD shielding and its incredible velocity, the debris would either be shrugged off or vaporized harmlessly before penetration. The risk of fragmenting the 5-kilometer mass into smaller, still lethal, radioactive kinetic impactors was too high. The swarm was put on a perpetual, terrifying hold. The gravitational disruptor was an even more esoteric theoretical measure. It involved using Earth's most powerful deep space communication arrays, such as the Deep Space Network, DSN, not for listening, but for directed energy pulse emission. The theory was to bombard the object with precisely tuned, high-energy microwave pulses, attempting to disrupt the object's highly sensitive internal guidance and propulsion fields. Dr. Reed's team hypothesized that the alien propulsion relied on an incredibly delicate internal energy balance. A massive, sustained external electromagnetic assault might cause a momentary loss of thrust, just enough to break the trajectory lock. For 72 agonizing hours, the planet's most sensitive instruments were repurposed for this desperate attempt. The energy output was astronomical, drawing power from entire regional grids. But the effect on 3i Atlas, hurtling toward us at unimaginable speed, was zero. The trajectory remained fixed. The acceleration did not waver. It was as if the immense energy we were throwing at it was absorbed, a mere ripple on its titanic hull. The conclusion was inevitable and devastating. 3 Atlas possessed defensive countermeasures that were equally as advanced as its engine. Humanity's last best hope was a fizzle. We had been technologically dismissed. The revelation: the sun is the fuel tank. The failure of the gravitational disruptor forced the pattern anomaly group to reconsider the very source of 3 Atlas's power. Its sustained hyperacceleration required an energy output that should have been instantly detectable by its sheer heat signature. Yet, it was running cold, too cold. It was generating impossible thrust with an impossible efficiency. The key lay, paradoxically, in the very thing its anti-tail was pointed toward: the sun. Dr. Petrova's breakthrough analysis, combining the initial nickel tetracarbonyl signature with the persistent anti-tail orientation, led to the development of the stellar tapping hypothesis. This was the ultimate realization of alien engineering. 3 Atlas wasn't merely using its internal fuel, it was actively harvesting and converting massive amounts of energy from the sun itself. The anti-tail, that mysterious physics-defying plume, was not simply a thrust nozzle or a counterbalance. It was the exhaust of a highly advanced energy converter. The nickel tetracarbonyl was not the primary fuel, but a catalyst, a highly refined chemical medium designed to interact with and stabilize the raw, volatile solar energy channeled directly into the object's core. It wasn't just burning fuel, it was performing controlled, sustained, localized solar energy conversion. This explained the impossible speed, the minimal heat signature, and the object's sustained stability. 3i Atlas was not a ship struggling to escape the sun's gravity. It was a harness. It was using the kinetic energy potential of the sun itself, the very engine of our solar system, to power its hyperacceleration. Every minute of its journey gained speed, not through internal combustion, but through the continuous channeled energy of our star. The horrifying implication was immediate. The object possessed the ability to manipulate the fundamental energies of our solar system. The sun, our source of life, had been momentarily co-opted and used as an accelerator pedal for a colossal hostile intelligence. The magnitude of this technology was a crushing indictment of humanity's scientific limitations. We were dealing with a force that saw our star not as a precious life-giver, but as an inexhaustible battery for its terrifying prime directive. The terror was no longer localized to the object, it was solar system-wide. The climax, the deceleration shock. Narrator: the final, devastating piece of data arrived just hours before 3 Atlas was projected to reach its closest point of approach to Earth's orbital path. For weeks, the narrative had been defined by one terrifying constant: the acceleration. We had braced for an unstoppable, high-speed flyby that would execute its catastrophic deployment and vanish into the black. We expected the speed to remain fixed until the very last moment. But then, the unbelievable happened. The telemetry reports streamed directly from the object's internal transponder echo, captured by a desperate, unauthorized network of global observatories, indicated a massive, instantaneous, and perfectly controlled deceleration. The rate of speed, which had defied physics on the way in, was now reversed with the same impossible efficiency. The 5-kilometer mass of 3i Atlas was rapidly shedding velocity, using its solar harness propulsion in reverse, not as a thruster, but as an aerobrake against the vacuum of space. The speed dropped from breakneck hypervelocity to a mere 25,000 kilometers per hour, still fast but a shocking reduction. The trajectory lock was broken, replaced by an orbital insertion burn. The realization hit the pattern anomaly group with the force of a physical blow. It was never supposed to crash. It was never supposed to fly by. The hyperacceleration was merely the method to get here fast. The true purpose was to stop, to execute a complex non-collisional maneuver that positioned it perfectly, with chilling stability at the edge of Earth's atmosphere. What 3 Atlas did next shattered all remaining hope. The object began to stabilize itself into a geostationary-like orbit, hanging almost motionless over a specific, densely populated region of the Earth. It had arrived. The engineered object was now a stationary platform. The terror had changed completely. We were no longer facing an extinction-level impact. We were facing an orbital deployment, and the mission, whatever it was about to begin. The accelerated approach was just the prelude. The terrifying stillness was the beginning of the end. The terrifying stillness of 3I Atlas, now hanging in a precise geostationary-like orbit above Earth, was not a moment of respite. It was the calm before the storm, the hyperacceleration, the harnessing of solar energy, the impossible deceleration. All of it had been for this moment. The object was not a weapon of impact, but a platform, and from its colossal silent form, the true terror began to unfold. Global military and scientific agencies, still reeling from the shock of the deceleration, immediately pointed every available sensor at the now stationary behemoth. They expected visible launches, identifiable energy weapons, anything that resembled a conventional threat. What they detected was far more insidious, far more alien. From the underside of 3I Atlas, a series of precisely timed, extremely faint sub-terahertz electromagnetic pulses began to emanate. These weren't powerful blasts designed to destroy. They were subtle, focused, and delivered with surgical precision. Each pulse was followed by an equally faint, almost undetectable gravimetric anomaly, a localized minute fluctuation in Earth's gravitational field, pinpointed directly beneath the source of the sub-terahertz emission. Dr. Reed's team, frantically analyzing the data, theorized that 3I Atlas was deploying not visible projectiles, but nanoscale payloads, perhaps even metamaterial seeds, delivered via highly focused electromagnetic fields that could precisely overcome Earth's atmospheric drag. The sub-terahertz pulses acted as a carrier wave, a directional beam, while the minute gravimetric anomalies were the signature of a tiny mass being precisely, imperceptibly, deposited onto the planet. This wasn't a bomb, it was a seeding. The targets for these silent deployments were chillingly specific. Early reports indicated concentrated activity over critical energy infrastructures, major power grids, nuclear facilities, hydroelectric dams, global communication hubs, major data centers, satellite uplinks, underwater fiber optic cable junctions, dense urban centers, not indiscriminately, but focusing on specific high-density residential zones within megalopolises, sensitive ecological zones, pristine rainforests, major ocean currents, and unique biospheres. The sheer precision spoke of a pre-programmed, highly detailed knowledge of Earth's vital systems and populations. This wasn't random scattering. This was a targeted intervention. The acceleration had brought 3I Atlas to its precise orbital station, and now it was methodically executing its primary function, the silent, undetectable infiltration of Earth. The payloads were too small to see, too subtle to feel, too advanced to intercept. Humanity was being subjected to a cosmic acupuncture, its vital points being probed and perhaps irrevocably altered by an unseen hand. The terror was no longer in the unknown, but in the unfolding, undeniable certainty of its insidious purpose. The cascade, Earth's silent subjugation. The deployment was silent, insidious, and utterly terrifying in its precision, but its effects were anything but. Within hours of 3I Atlas's motionless deployment, the acupuncture points on Earth began to react. The sub-terahertz pulses had not merely delivered payloads, they had triggered a cascade of unprecedented and localized phenomena. The first reported incidents were dismissed as isolated technical failures, environmental anomalies, or even mass hysteria. But the Pattern Anomaly Group, with their direct feed of the orbital data, knew better. They watched in horror as the localized effects mirrored, with chilling accuracy, the previous, dismissed glitches that had occurred globally during 3 Atlas's early approach, only now amplified and concentrated. Technological sabotage, power grids, precisely targeted, experienced not blackouts, but brownouts, sustained, insidious power fluctuations that destabilize sensitive electronics, corrupting data, damaging infrastructure without visible destruction. Financial networks experienced ghost transactions, brief but devastating data corruptions that vanished before they could be fully traced. The intention was clear, not to destroy, but to destabilize and control. Biological resequencing. In the targeted ecological zones and urban centers, the invisible payloads began their work. Early, suppressed reports indicated rapid, localized mutations in microbial life, particularly in water sources and soil samples. Genetic sequences of common bacteria and fungi showed unprecedented rapid alterations,